My friends, welcome. The mark is here. Iran is set to be the first country to roll out a biometric digital ID needed in order to buy food. Needed in order to eat. Right? Needed in order to survive. You must go get your digital ID from the government. The same digital ID that central banks are telling us is needed in order to roll out the central bank digital currencies. The same digital ID that the World Economic Forum establishes is at the very crux of this fourth industrial revolution. Yeah, all of that. Now you need to go get your ID in order to eat. Now there's some interesting details about the way Iran is implementing this that I want to walk through today, because I think this is a bellwether for how it's going to be rolled out around the rest of the world. And make no mistake, this is food rationing based on your digital ID. Let's read down here. You're able to buy as much bread as you want, but if you want to get the subsidized prices, then you're going to need the ID. Then you'll have access to, quote, a limited amount of bread at subsidized prices. And you can keep buying the rest at market rates if you want, right? You can buy as much bread for $1 million a loaf as you want. But for the 50% of Iran that lives below the poverty line, that's not an option, right? Their only option is to go get in line and accept this mark, this digital biometric ID to which all resources are being tied. Not just bread, but according here, the scheme will later include all goods such as chicken, cheese, vegetable oil, and so on and so forth. So this is a pretty big deal. Let's talk about it. I'm Christian, and this is the Ice Age Farmer Broadcast.
Joining us now is our correspondent in Tehran, Reza Saya. Reza, what can you tell us about these protests?
When you have protests like this in Iran, it's oftentimes very difficult, sometimes impossible to verify exactly how big they are, how widespread they are, and exactly where they are, especially when they're outside of Tehran, because we simply don't have access to these locations and we can't independently verify what's happening. However, with the limited information we have, let's tell you what we do know. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen an increasing number of video clips posted online, posted on social media, showing demonstrations and protests in at least two southern cities in the southern province of Khuzestan. In these protests, you see demonstrators sometimes chanting anti-government slogans against current Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi. Sometimes the protests are turning violent. When you look at these video clips, you see rioters burning tires and security forces responding by firing tear gas in an effort to disperse the demonstrators. Very limited reporting by Iran state media. One of the few reports we saw earlier today said that 22 demonstrators have been arrested. Why are people angry? Because of sudden price hikes when it comes to basic food items. The government announcing price hikes with 4 basic food items, including cooking oil, eggs, chicken, and milk. Other food items, including sandwich bread, pasta, flour, they've gone up as well. And the reason for these sudden price hikes are twofold. On one hand, these price hikes are part of Iran's efforts to reform the economy, to get rid of very costly subsidies. The other reason is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine, major suppliers of food to Iran. Russia supplies at least half of Iran's wheat supply. Ukraine supplying Iran with a lot of cooking oil. Obviously, the conflict there disrupting some of those supplies, and that too has led to some of these sudden price hikes.
It's obvious to most of us that there is a systematic destruction going on now in what we would likely call the food supply chain, both within the nation and internationally. And that's not going to end well. And here's my guess, that since this is not an accident, and none of it's an accident, since this is not an accident, there is a plan to reduce the food supply to the point that you are dependent upon the state to be fed. So they don't need to starve you. They just need to make the number of calories available a little bit less than you would want. And since that would give rise to food riots, then they will put in place either martial law or rationing. And rationing will be driven off digital ID. So this seems to me, why are they doing it? Because you have to eat, and they'll say, no compliance, no food.